Our milk roll's got a lot of bottle. It's for you. And all because the ladies love our health grains.
One day you take over the company.
Hello, Dad.
Why don't you just say Warburton's bread is very good?
Warburton's bread is very good.
Well done.
One day.
Jonathan, many congratulations on winning the Grocer Cup. It's the first baker, you are the first baker, to ever win this award. How do you feel?
When you rang me last week and told me about it, I have to say I was delighted and somewhat humbled because it wouldn't be something I'd have ever considered in my sort of career to have been. It was just a very, very pleasant surprise.
What makes you humble as such? Because I don't think of you as humble and saying
fair. I think, I've spent my career, pretty focused on trying to be part of building a business that's had a degree of success over the years. And I was brought up, and myself and my two cousins, I'm very fond of, and I've worked with all my life, have always seen the greater good as the important thing. So it's been a matter of, it's not the individual, the ego that matters, it's the collective and the business. So I've always really seen that there's the aim of to have Warburton's as a collective, as a family business of which I've obviously played a decent part of. So to be sort of picked out as an individual was not something that I was expecting. And that's really what sort of humbled me a bit.
If I start with COVID, what was that like for Warburton's as a business, and what role did you play?
You're right. It not something that we'd ever thought of come across. Radar didn't really believe it at the beginning of 2020 and was still saying in February that, well, it'll be fine. And then for it to hit, I think I've probably never been prouder of the business and the way it responded. And that's two things. I can honestly say we never, of all the lines that we've got throughout the bakeries, of which, let's say for this conversation, we've 30 manufacturing lines, at no stage during that period did we have any of them stop for lack of resource. So the way that the business responded, I think, was a very positive reflection on the culture of our organisation, and our people were brilliant. And there'll be loads of people saying the same thing. From a personal perspective, it was very odd because there's 5,000 people in our business, 4,800 are bothered about tomorrow. So they spend all their time focusing on tomorrow, and most of those were going in every day. And I had quite a bit of correspondence from family members of bakers or warehouse people or drivers saying, I can't believe you're making my dad or my mum go to work. It wasn't the case at all. And it very quickly that transferred into people going, actually, we really want to be part of it. We want to. Now, I live on a farm 50 miles away now, and I'm sat at home thinking, sun's out, it's all rather nice. And yet there's a big part of me that's feeling really guilty about the fact I'm not in. So on a weekly basis, very early on, because we were considered key workers, I'd get in my car, I'd drive to Bolton, I'd make sure the car was outside the front door, so that they knew that we weren't sat at home.
And now, of course, we have this cost of living crisis, and if any part of this sector is in the spotlight, it's bakery, heating, baking, obviously, the wheat, and so on and so forth. How on earth are you managing?
Well, I, throughout my very long career, what's tended to happen is that if you've got inflation in fuel, wheat would come at you. If you've got labour, wages increases, packaging would be cheaper. There was always a bit of a counterbalance. Sometimes it was like that, sometimes it was like that, but often there was a lever going to pull back. I've never seen anything like this, where you've got labour, fuel, packaging, oils, wheat, you name it, all going the wrong way. And so, thankfully, we have a strong brand. Thankfully, we're well invested from a capital perspective, so the kit's in good nick. Our vehicle estate's in very good order. But inevitably, with something as incredibly good value as bakery, we're having to put pricing through. And that is a reflection on world markets. It's not a reflection on a poorly run business. And it's affecting not only bakery, but I'm only really interested in bakery. But when you look at what's happening to world wheat prices now, obviously what's happening in the war in Ukraine has just added fuel to what was already a burning fire. And it's making it incredibly challenging for the business. Now, up to now, all the customers are in the same position because not only do they sell private label bakery, but everything, all other commodities. I mean, from my perspective, bread's been too cheap for too long. It's been allowed to be cheap because of an inherent overcapacity in an industry that's kit lasts forever. And there needs to be a correction. I think that we are starting to see price moves, but if we don't, people won't survive. I mean, absolutely no doubt there will be people who are creaking like that now. And that's not only in bakery, but that's across all manufacturing. But it will sort the wheat out from the chaff, not using, no pun intended, but it will definitely sort it out. But I think it is as challenging as I've ever seen it. And it's funny, you talk to my sons, who, hopefully will be joining the business next year, you talk to them and you say, well, I've never seen this. I mean, I can remember the late 90s.
Good luck, son.
Yeah.
This is your problem now.
Yeah, but it is, it's unprecedented, but we'll be fine. But we do need to get pricing for it.
The premium that you charge relative to some of the own label loaves is very significant, isn't it? The average loaf price. You've always had that premium. It's been part of the proposition.
Yeah.
That you've been able to say, well, that's the own label piece, and but we're above that. And
well, we're just it's the positioning of the business really. And we always set out 40 years ago when we decided to try and develop the business onto a national business. We always said, look, our processes are different, our ingredients are different. The way that we run the business, we decided not to do private label. Nothing wrong with private label at all, but there was no point because everybody else did, so why would we do it? And what we wanted to do, and this was driven into us by our fathers, was that, you've got to provide better quality because ultimately consumers will buy on a quality platform. And particularly when it's such incredibly good value for money. Now, I reckon a loaf of our large white sliced bread is somewhere between $1.10 and $1.40, depending on who you're dealing with. And you can still buy a large private label loaf for half that. Gone are the days when I knew or I could talk to people about what things cost, but I don't know how it works. I really just don't know how it works. So at $1.20 or $1.10 for us, I think that's exceptionally good value. It's still too cheap, by the way.
My final question, as you look back on your career, of course, how far away, your twilight years, how far away are you from retiring? And you mentioned the family, the sixth generation coming through next year.
Yeah.
What is the plan, the succession plan?
Well, from a personal perspective, we are 150th anniversary is in 26. So I've sort of committed to staying with Brentwood's till then. At the moment, we have two of the next generation. So Brett's daughter Megan and Ross's son Jimmy have just started in the business with differing roles. And my twin boys, Harry and Jack, all being well, will be in this time next year. They need as much. Well, they need the business in as fighting fit shape as it can possibly be in the next 2 to 3 years. So that's the major focus for all of us. And secondly, they need as much time as possible to get up to speed, to understand how the business works, to understand where the opportunities lie. We would desperately want it to remain a private business. We want to stay as a family business. But you can only plan so far ahead. It'd be daft to be saying, it's going to be this forever, because it won't be. And they need to have the opportunity to mould it in the way. I remember how my father was with me and how the advice he gave me. And I would like to think it's worked, and I think we should do the same thing.
On the other hand, you do have an incredibly capable senior management team that aren't
We do.
the family,
Yeah.
part of the family. And so is there the possibility that the business will be not run at the very top by a Warburton, but that the family will remain in the business, and in due course they may or may not rise to the top?
Absolutely. And when we were at the same stage 35 years ago, it's exactly what happened. So my father was chairman, he retired. The chap called Jim Speaker was then managing director, became chairman, and none of that generation were on the board. We were making our way, and so for a 5-year period, and so within the culture of the business, that's expected. And as you say, you're so biased with your own kids, you're convinced that they're all going to be brilliant. The reality is that you're still living in hope rather than expectation. You set them up for success, but they might choose to do other things as well. And so, it's also providing a culture where the professional management feel they have the opportunity to influence the future. Otherwise, you're never going to get the commitment that we need. So, it's too early to tell, but that's the plan. There is such a thing.
Jonathan, many congratulations
Thank you very
on
much.
winning the Grocer Cup.
Thank you.
Many congratulations on such a successful career, and so glad that you're going to be sticking around until 2026.
Yeah. And at come 25, he asked me again, but I no doubt we'll be chatting. And I'll be. I think 26 is a sensible stake in the ground till it's 25 and a half, and I might be different.
I think it's going to be quite useful to have you around.
Well, I hope
what's
so.
going on right now.
I hope so.
Jonathan, thank you very much.
Thank you.